So let's talk about the empirical rule. So the empirical rule says that when we have data that are approximately bell-shaped or roughly bell-shaped, then we have that 68% of the data lie within one standard deviation, 95% lie within two standard deviations, and 99.7% of the data are within three standard deviations of the mean. So you need to commit those three values at a minimum to memory. The other values, if you're not so good at deriving them, you need to commit those to memory as well. So what I'm going to do in this video is show you how to actually derive those values. So let's think about it. It's symmetric. So symmetric means that it's the same on both sides, right? So let's start with this 34%. Where does that come from, right? So we know that 68 are within 1. So remember, this is the mean, and then we're going to add and subtract one standard deviation. I also could look at this with X bar, so I'll write those under there in a minute. But this is just splitting the 68 in half, right? So if I look at 68 divided by 2, I'm going to get 34, right? So that's where these values come from, right? So next, where does the 13.5 come from, right? So let's look at those and see where those come from. So think about it. So these are 95 within 2, and then we have 68 within 1. So we're looking for this, basically the subtraction. We need to know what's left over. So I'm going to do 95 minus 68. But I just want half of that region. So I'm going to take that total and divide it by 2. The difference there is 27. When I divide that by 2, we get our 13.5. So that's where our 13.5 comes from. Here on both sides. So next, moving along, we want to look at where does the 2.35 come from. So again, same idea. So 99.7 minus 95 here. So change the color to something that we can see that's a little bit different. And the options here. We'll just go with blue. So 99.7 minus 95, right? Divided by 2. Look at 4.7 divided by 2, and that leaves us with the 2.35. Right? For both of those. And then lastly, the 0.15%. Right? So everything has to add up to 100%. So we're going to do 100% minus the 99.7. Divide that by 2. And we get our 0.15 on the end. So there's only 0.3% that aren't within 3 standard deviations from the mean, right? So just to, again, representation underneath here. So we could do the same thing here with the sample mean. So I would have X bar and then X bar plus S, X bar plus 2S, X bar plus 3S, and then same thing over here. So X bar minus S, X bar minus 2 times S, and X bar minus 3 times S. So again, the empirical rule only works if the data are roughly bell-shaped. So that's how we get the 34, the 13.5, 2.35, and 0.15%. So that's summary of empirical rule.